Ladies and gentlemen in the audience, please put your hands together for Mr. Srikanth Ramachandran.
When Rajiv spoke to me, I think about 4 or 5 weeks back, and gave me this topic, I said, okay, he doesn't like me. I said, he's given me a difficult topic, and then that kind of set my thinking. And I want to start off with a little bit of humor on what do we mean by a cost-conscious Asian. And here we go.
That's who can't do business together. Chinese people and Indian people cannot do business together. Because Indians cannot live without a bargain, and Chinese people cannot give you a bargain. Their objective is to get every penny from you, and ours is to keep every penny. There's a really bad power struggle there. I went to this Chinese mall. Some of you may know it, Pacific Mall. That's the wrong place for an Indian guy to go. I saw this bag. I wanted to buy this bag there. I go, how much? I go to the Chinese guy behind the counter. How much? He goes, $35. How about 30? And Chinese people will never tell you no. They'll tell you no the longest no you've ever heard in your life. Like you just said, the most ridiculous thing they've ever heard in their life. I'll give you 30. No. No. I can't do $30. I sell you $30 today, you come tomorrow, I'll close down.
Okay. So that kind of typifies the cost-conscious Asian, right? But before we find out how much somebody would be willing to pay, we've got to understand why do they want to buy your product, right? Before cost comes in, I think the fundamental reason of what is it that the buyer is looking for. So let's do this. If I were to ask you, you go out to buy watermelons, and you look at 5 shops, and you've got all these shops as outlined there. Now, how many of you would choose shop A? Can I have a show of hands, please? Okay. How many of you would go for shop B? There we go. That's the traditional out-of-home sales cycle that we are used to, right? We put a price out there and we put some attractive thing around it and then we try and sell it. But actually, what a buyer is looking for is a lot more information. Is it organic? Where is it from? Is it seedless? So everybody wants to know certain data and attributes before you buy a product. Now, if you put yourself in the shoe of a marketer, that's exactly what he's looking for when he wants to buy some out-of-home assets. He wants to know what is it, does it, and the earlier speaker on the creative side said, is there a museum nearby? Is there some attributes nearby to that billboard that's important? How many people are going by that billboard, etc. So if this is the reason why they want these attributes, the buyer is asking for this information, the question becomes data and tech. And I said, okay, let me make a small hijack here from cost to value. Right? Because data and tech drive cost and value together. And the reason why we should be interested in it is overall out-of-home is in a 7%, depending on the market, 5 to 8% of the total media spend. Whereas digital and mobile is controlling almost 30% of the media spend. So we've got to look at why is digital doing well, and the answer is very clear. It is because of the automation, it's because of the transparency, and it is because of the measurement. So if these are the reasons why digital is growing so fast, and data and tech are driving that, then the question becomes, what is it that we need to provide marketeers with so that out-of-home industry grows? And I tried to simplify it. I mean, there are a lot more data attributes that you can work around. But the first thing they want to know is how many audiences am I reaching? And you have heard this word over the last 2 days by many speakers that we need to move away from a billboard to audiences-based buying. So they're looking at how many am I able to reach, at what frequency am I able to reach them, over what period of time. I think if we can understand these 3 simple metrics, Like the watermelon, the buyer would look at it and say, does it fit with my buying criteria? Now you may turn around and say, what if the frequency is not right? Let me give you an example. If you take something like an airport perhaps, if you do an analysis of an airport, the frequency will always be low. Why? Because unless you have very, very frequent travelers, you're not going to get a high frequency. Whereas if you flip that around and you take an office building, your frequency is going to be high because 80% of the people who come to the office are the people who are working there. But different brands would have different priorities. So when you work with a client, the client would have sometimes a frequency objective. If they are looking at changing behavior, they need high frequency. If they are looking at acquisition, they need reach. So it's not that your billboard is bad because it's got low frequency, or it's not good because it's got high reach. It's a question of what does the business buyer want? And as long as you answer that, then you've got a winner. But that's from a buyer perspective. I know a lot of you in this room, you need to understand the buyer, but you also have certain questions. Wouldn't it be wonderful if you came to work in the morning and you say, give me the top 10 billboards which are unsold for more than 30 days, and tell me what would make this sale possible. Should I drop a price? Should I talk to certain groups of advertisers that would enable the sale of this billboard? So what matters to a buyer, the same data sets can be pivoted to the media owner, people like you, who could turn and ask slightly different questions, but ultimately the answer is to say, how do you find the right buyer for the asset that you have? So to pull all of this together, I think there are many dimensions of data that we need to pull together. Right? The first thing is audience. What are the people around that location? What are they doing? Where do they live? Where do they work? Where do they move around? The second is, what are the places that they go to? Do they fly often? Do they go to airports? Do they go to bars? So you start building a model on the places that they go to, and that gives you a profile of the person. And obviously the interest. Do they wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and start running? So once you start having all of these, and what I think is not yet explode even globally, the aspect of priming. If you were to turn around and ask, why did my campaign succeed? And ask the question, give me the segment of users who have seen McDonald's billboard 10 times and KFC 5 times and went to Burger King when they have had zero exposure to Burger King. You start getting a lot of insights, which is called priming. So when all of this data comes together, I think this industry would hugely benefit because the buyer confidence would improve. Now, obviously, we had to do some tests because 3-4 years back when we came up with this concept and we started working on it, people said it can't be done. Overhead industry will not change. India is not ready. So I jokingly say there is this joke where a Nike salesman goes to Africa and he calls up and he says, boss, there's no market here. Nobody's wearing shoes. They send the second salesman and he goes there and he says, boss, there's a great market here. There are 100 million people without shoes. Right? So for every new idea that you come up with, people are going to say no to you. And as an entrepreneur for 18 years, I've probably heard more no's by a factor of 100 times than encouragement. A few people will give you encouragement, but a lot of people will try and discourage you. So we said, why don't we go and test the demand? And again, as a avid movie buff, I watched a movie called 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing. How many of you have seen the movie 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing? Yeah, it's a classic, and if you're in the outdoor media industry, it's a must-see movie, right? So we watched that and we said, why don't we create a 3 billboard offer to any client who's spending money on a billboard? Tell me, where are your 3 billboards, and I'll give you a free report of what those billboards are going to do to your business objectives. So we ran this, and we continue to run that as our sampling exercise with clients. And within a few months, we have already had about 180 clients or so who have signed up to the platform. They've given us the 3 billboards they've bought, and we have produced the reports and we have shipped it to them to show how data can play a role in selection of outdoor media. But I think if you were to summarize it, this is the first step. when we talk about data and technology, data is the first step, and you start asking questions and optimizing the media. And at this stage, it does not matter whether it's unipole or whether it is a digital asset or whether it is a static poster. It does not really matter. You're only looking at how is it meeting my business objectives. The second step is automation. And the question is, why do you need to automate? Right? And it's a very simple case where programmatic is you use a program, which is typically a code written by somebody, to automate so that a planner, a client, has got more time to optimize, improve, and increase ROI. So it's a simple process. Take the manual process, automate it, so that you can apply your mind and start doing bigger things than what an automation brings to the table. So programmatic is definitely the next step. And why would marketeers need automation for out-of-home? And I don't know how many of you have picked up, there have been cases even in the US where a digital asset owner said they would deliver 20,000 spots on screens that did not exist. And we know ad fraud is huge in digital, but ad fraud and digital out-of-home will also start coming about if there is no automation, because there's no way to verify whether the spots got delivered. And you have different formats. Even in this room, if you look at it, you have such a large screen which is multi-panel. You've got a screen that's vertical format. So there are many different formats. And you need to reformat the content, and you need to play it accurately. And if you want digital, especially nascent in India, if you want to run a pan-India campaign, you have to work with 5, 6, 8, 10 players for you to get access to inventory. So I think these are the reasons why marketeers are looking for it. Why do media owners need automation? And I'm sharing cases that you have told me over the last few years. I've had opportunities to interact. Suppose you're a small media owner in, let's say, Coimbatore. When I say small, it could be big, but you're in a town which is small. And you needed to engage with the buyers who are the agencies. Most of them are in Mumbai and in Delhi. And you never get the opportunity to connect to them. And like that, there are probably 2,000 media owners trying to call on 20 media planners. So obviously, this is not going to work. If I were to come in today and say, a media owner, or forget a media owner, a retailer in Coimbatore has a website, why is your media not on a website? Right? I think 1990s, it would have been okay. But now you need to look at automating it. You need to be on a website so that the planners find it easy to connect to you. And you need to show value on your assets. So the dream was, what if out-of-home could be bought like just on any other screen, but, and I want to use the but, not in a bidding way. And I think many speakers have talked about it earlier. What is called real-time bidding is also known as race to the bottom, right? Because that's effectively destroying your asset, but it needs to be bought in a different process where the asset is appreciated, the pricing for that asset is appreciated. And then again, many speakers before have said about this, that overlay it with mobile. And I want to talk about two or three different examples. I think you've seen a lot of examples where you can zone a particular area. The same creative that's running on a large billboard will synchronize with the phone. And that kind of improves the ability to get an ROI on a campaign. But recently, we did a campaign which I would call as synchronous messaging. Or what we did is we synchronized it with search and YouTube in real time. So if you were to see this ad, and if you were to go to the phone and do a search, you were bidded higher in programmatic on mobile. So the out-of-home asset was treated differently, but the mobile impressions were purely real-time bidding. So you've got a lot of these use cases that are emerging in multiple markets in Asia now. And the question is, why do you need to do it again? Because you're talking to digital buyers now. You're not talking to the out-of-home planners. If you're going digital, you've got to talk to the digital buyers. If you want to talk to the digital buyers, please learn the language he or she speaks, right? And if he understands only German, you've got to learn German and speak to him. Today, he understands data. He doesn't understand anything else. So you've got to have that data to talk to him in a sensible way. And it may not be even a human being, it may be a system that's automating and optimizing, and that understands only data. So I think that's why this becomes important. And what we have seen is truly the digital buyers are ready to enter the market. Again, literally 3 months back when I've said this, people would say, why would a digital buyer buy out of home? Right? Today, a lot of campaigns that we are running in Malaysia, Singapore are all based on digital buyers. So this is, I'm not saying it in any other sense, but it's within Group M, they have a division called Zaxis, and they are digital buyers. So they are the ones who are now buying out of home. Similarly, within DAN, there is a group called Amnet, which is a digital buyer, and they are the ones who are buying digital out of home now. And it's all coming from digital budgets. And I want you to pause here and think about it. Do you want to play in the 8% game, or do you want to play in the 32% game? Right? Do you want to play in the $32 billion market and try to take a share of it, or do you want to play in the $7 billion market and try to take a share of it, right? Obviously, the answer is if you're in a $32 billion market where the buyers are, your chances of getting revenues are much, much higher. So there's a lot of agencies like PhD, Amnet, Zaxis who have started buying it. Better still, Google has also come on board, and we have extended Google's platform where you buy YouTube so that it can buy digital out of home as well. And many clients, these are clients' campaigns that are running in the last 6 weeks. One by one, they've started jumping onto the bandwagon, and there's a lot of digital buying that's happening. But I've got to come back to a bit of comedy. Can I have this plate?
Indians just look upset that they had to spend money to be here tonight, don't you? That's the look on their face, just... This is bullshit. I don't know why I'm spending money to see someone that looks just like me. I can stay home and look in the mirror for free. We are an endless supply of cheap jokes. And you know what the best thing about it is? Indian people, we're proud of our cheapness. You're never going to insult us by calling us cheap. That's the best part, you know. You walk up to an Indian, you guys are cheap. Thank you for noticing. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. That guy just called you cheap. No, no, no. He pronounced it cheap, but what he was saying was smart. Very smart, he was saying.
Again, Rajiv helped me think through this, and I said, I'm in front of smart Indian audiences today, and if I had to convince you that data and technology is worth investing in, what would you pay? Did I hear $1 million from somewhere? So I knew that wouldn't be the answer, because I'm an Indian too. I was born here, I grew up here. So I said, who invented zero? Right? Obviously, we have a claim towards this, right? That's how cost conscious we are. So I said, what is the cost that's acceptable in India? And the answer was zero. And again, Rajiv, I have to thank you because you provided me the inspiration by asking me a hard question. And I said, how do I find an answer? So I needed to find an answer that was zero. And that's the answer. As you know, many of you have come and talked to us and looked at what we are doing. We are going to make the platform open, free, and we want to crowdsource it. So we want to open source it, and we want to crowdsource it, where we want you involved in this as well. Sorry, that was a bit of a 30-second commercial. But the point is this, we are here to free and digitize the outdoor media so that you can connect to your buyers. You have the ability now to list, and the agency and your clients have the ability to find you. Not only find you, understand what that billboard is, what kind of attributes it has, why would it be relevant for their campaigns, and by you. Right? So that's really what we are trying to do here. With that, thank you. And
Well, that was pretty tough. Pretty much the end of OAC 2019, and you're still getting a 3-2-1. Thank you so much. That was
Thank you.
fantastic, sir. I'm now going to invite Mr. Deepankar Sanyal to join us on stage. He's got the tough decision. He's got many, many questions. I can see he's still scrolling as he's walking on. And he's got to choose 3 questions. Mr. Deepankar Sanyal, CEO, Platinum Outdoor. Welcome.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ramachandran. It was a wonderful presentation, and the thing is, there's so many questions to ask. OAC would become a 3-day affair if I really go into it. So I'll take the 3 questions I feel are more relevant. First is from Priyanka Zaveri, JC Deco. She asked, the budget spent for OH always conservative as compared to other medium. Will the evolution of data and technology make brands increase their spends so that OH can be part of every campaign?
I mean, that's the dream. And if I were to quote a personal conversation with one of the leading advertisers in India, in out-of-home, where they are listed probably in the top 3 advertisers of out-of-home, the conversation with the CMO was very simple. He said, Srikanth, I admire your persistence. You've called me 20 times and you made me see you. And you know why I did not respond to you? Because we spend less than 5% of our media on outdoor. I don't really care where it goes, right? But when you started talking, I realized that if I knew where it was going, maybe I would spend more. And that's the reason I'm meeting you, right? I think that's really the reason why clients are looking at. Right now they're saying, beginning of the year, I take some money, I park it into overhead, and then I forget about it. Just buy a few billboards. We all are in the industry. The joke is, buy the billboard which is outside the boss' home so that he thinks that you're working very hard, buy it outside your office. You know, but I think it's moving away from business-led, campaign-led buying, and that needs data, that needs validation for the advertiser to feel confident about spending it. And I think that's really where the industry is moving. And that's not only with digital. I know a lot of you are still on static. Even static assets can be optimized. This advertiser and the agency that we are working with is saying, can I decide which static billboard will I buy for 2 months, and which static billboard I'll buy for 3 months, and which static billboard I'll buy for only 4 weeks, and I'll optimize it based on the data. The minute you give them what they want, they will come back and they will spend more, is our belief.
Thank you. Second question comes from Mr. Chitranjan Sahu, Pigeonera Technology. So the question is, talking of cost-conscious mindset, what Asian firms can learn from Western OH industry in terms of collaboration amongst different participants on data and tech costs instead of operating on their own silos? Probably specific interpretation of data and application of tech can be left to individual participants to leverage the common data and technology. So,
I mean, if you do a quick research, you look at the markets which are slightly more evolved, and I think earlier Gideon spoke about UK as well with Root. The industry came together, they funded, and if you look at the metrics of what they funded, of course, people in the room like you funded those exercises. They funded probably almost a high single digit, or at least a few percentage of the total out-of-home media spend to create Root, right? In US, it was less than a few percent. It was probably 2% of the overall media spend that was used to fund Geopath in the US. In Australia, you have a very similar system called Move. But if you take these 3 markets out of the equation and you look at rest of Asia, there is no system in place, including in India. And we have talked to agencies, we have talked to asset owners, we have talked to associations, but it takes a long time. And that's where I said it's taking too long, and I said, why don't we make it collaborative? So our simple value proposition is this. Based on AI, data algorithms, we will give you the data about your site. If you don't like it, give us your truth data set. You tell me why you don't like that number, and you can submit it. Again, it'll get automated. We will review all the numbers and we'll come back to you. If you think that you don't like it and you don't have a truth data set, click on a button, swipe your credit card, we'll ship you a small device that you can go put it into your billboard. You will have a truth data set now, and the algorithms will learn. So I think it has to be collaborative. I don't think right now the associations are probably underfunded. I don't want to comment on it. But I think it can be collaborative, and I sense that there are a lot of media owners who are seeing this as the way to go forward.
And lastly, question comes from Tasneem from Madison OH. She asked, how can you calculate the ROI on data and technology, as Asian firms are always looking for value for money? What would be the benchmark for investing in data and technology?
So when we talk about ROI, it becomes a very subjective or a very lengthy discussion. There are attribution, whether it's and all of us have done it. And earlier also I was having a conversation with someone. I land in San Francisco. The first thing I see is a bus shelter. And in that bus shelter, it says credit card without personal guarantee for startups. I thought I landed in Mecca, right? Where do they give you credit card without personal guarantee for startups, right? And it's a company called Brex, and they were in San Francisco airport, they were in San Francisco bus shelter, they were in New York Times Square, they were everywhere. But see, at my age, I don't remember what I read beyond a few seconds. So I had to pull the phone and I said, what was that company's name again? I went into search and I typed Brexit, something, and then I finally found out it was Brex, B-R-E-X, was the company. So I used search. So guess what? Search is walking away with an attribution saying that my search was very effective when it's the outdoor that triggered it. So the question that we need to ask is, we should not be fighting over this low level of data that's at a site level. Let's open source it. Let's give it away free. The real game will start, and I'm going to clients and I'm telling them, forget about out-of-home effectiveness. Let me improve your digital campaign, because you're spending $30 there. If I can improve your digital campaign with out-of-home blended into it, why wouldn't you buy a static site? Or if I can tell you, as an example, Amazon Prime or Netflix, if I can tell you how many people have seen your billboard in the last 30 days, static billboard, and do not have Amazon Prime or Netflix on their phone. If I can give you this information, what would you do with it? Wouldn't your digital campaign improve in its effectiveness? I think we are asking the wrong question. We should go and ask the questions where the $30 is being spent, rather than trying to prove this $5 is effective. Everybody knows $5 is effective. Otherwise, why would a Brex come in? Why would an Apple come in to this medium? I think that's where we need to change the game, and I think if everyone starts talking that way, I think the agencies and the marketeers will listen to us.
Thank you, Mr. Ramachandran. You've elaborately explained each and every point. Thank you so much. And which one would be your best question out of the three?
No, my wife sometimes thinks that I like hearing me too much, so I thought all the three answers were good. Did you agree? Now we have to figure out which question was good. It's going to be a tough one, but I would go with the last question. I think it's a very important question to address.
Thank you so much.
All right, can we please have Tasneem join us? Congratulations. She's walking on the stage right now. Congratulations. A check of 10,000 rupees awaits you, brought to you by Alak Advertising and Publicity. Gentlemen, center stage, please. Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause. The right question gets Tasneem 10,000 rupees. Congratulations. Thank you so much, Mr. Dipankar Sanyal, for choosing the questions. And ladies and gentlemen, make it loud. Put your hands together for Mr. Srikanth Ramachandran.